I was enjoying a quiet afternoon in the park, reflecting on my life with my husband. Mark, we'd been married for 5 years, and while things weren't perfect, I thought we were happy. Suddenly, a well-dressed man in his late 50s approached me with a serious expression. "Excuse me, are you Sarah, Mark's wife?" he asked, startled. I nodded. "Yes, that's me. Do I know you?" "Not yet," he replied, sitting down on the bench beside me. "But I have something important to tell you. Your husband made a huge a decision that's affecting your life more than you know." My mind raced. What could this be about? Was Mark in trouble at work? Had he hidden something financial from me? I pressed him for details, the stranger's side, and explained that Mark had been struggling with a personal issue for years. He had developed a habit of overspending on hobbies, leading to secret debts that were now threatening our home and future stability. He thought he could handle it alone, the man said, but it spiraled out of control. He didn't want to burden you, but keeping it hidden was the real error. I felt a mix of anger and sadness. How could Mark not trust me enough to share this? I demanded proof. And the stranger pulled out some documents, old receipts, and statements he'd somehow obtained. But then came the twist that left me speechless. "I'm not just a concerned acquaintance," he admitted. "I'm Mark's father. I left when he was young because of my own mistakes, and I've been trying to make amends from afar. I hired someone to check on him, and that's how I discovered this." I couldn't stay silent anymore. The revelation hit me like a wave. Mark had always told me his father had passed away. He'd never mentioned this painful part of his past. This stranger father-in-law explained he'd been watching over us discreetly, hoping for a chance to reconnect without causing more pain. After the shock wore off, I confronted Mark calmly that evening. He broke down, admitting everything and apologizing for the secrecy. Together, we sought professional help for his spending issues and began rebuilding our trust. As for my father-in-law, he slowly became part of our lives, helping us navigate the financial recovery and healing old wounds. It turned out that sometimes a stranger's words can lead to unexpected family reunions and second chances. We all make mistakes, but facing them together made us stronger. The park that day had felt like a haven, a slice of tranquility amid the chaos of everyday life. The leaves rustled gently in the wind, and the distant laughter of children playing on the swings provided a soothing backdrop to my thoughts. I had chosen this spot deliberately, away from the bustling paths where joggers and dog walkers hurried by. It was my ritual on days when work felt overwhelming, a moment to breathe, to sketch, to simply be. Mark and I had discovered this park early in our marriage, picnicking here under the sprawling oak trees, dreaming about the future. A house with a yard, maybe kids someday, travel adventures to far-off places. Those dreams seemed so vivid back then, untainted by the realities that creep in over time. As the stranger's words sank in, I replayed our life together in my mind. Mark was the rock, the one who balanced the checkbook and planned our vacations down to the last detail. His job as an accountant suited him perfectly. He thrived on order, on making sense of numbers that baffled me. But now, this revelation painted a different picture. Overspending on hobbies. It didn't align with the man I knew, or at least the man I thought I knew. Yet, as I sat there, fragments of memories began to align like puzzle pieces I hadn't realized were missing. There were the late nights he'd spend in his home office claiming to catch up on work emails, the packages that arrived sporadically, dismissed as just some tools for the garage or a bargain I couldn't pass up. His growing collection of model trains, which he said were a harmless nostalgia from childhood, but which seemed to multiply without explanation. I'd teased him about it once, calling it his miniature empire, and he'd laughed it off. Now, that laughter echoed hollow in my ears. The documents the stranger handed me were damning. Receipts from online auctions for rare coins, statements showing credit card balances climbing month by month. One particularly large charge caught my Aja vintage camera set. That must have cost thousands. When had he bought that? I remembered him showing it to me briefly, saying it was a gift from a client. Lies, all of it. The anger surged, hot and unbidden, but beneath it lurked a deeper hurt. Why hadn't he confided in me? We were partners, weren't we? Vows exchanged in front of family and friends, promising to share burdens as well as joys. And then the bombshell about his identity. Mark's father. The man I'd believed was long gone. A tragic figure from a car accident that Mark rarely spoke of. He'd shown me an old photo once, a grainy image of a young family, and his voice had cracked when he mentioned the loss. It shaped me, he'd said, made me who I am. Now, that shape felt distorted, built on a foundation of deception. The stranger, Robert, as he introduced himself, spoke with a quiet remorse that seemed genuine. His eyes, a mirror of Mark's deep blue ones, held a sadness that spoke volumes. I was 22 when Mark was born, Robert continued, his voice steady but laced with regret. Too young, too reckless. I got into gambling, cards, horses, you name it. The debts mounted and I dragged my family down with me. One night, after a particularly bad loss, I realized I was toxic. I left a note, some money I'd scraped together, and vanished. Told my wife to say I was dead. It was kinder than the truth. I've spent the years since getting clean building a life in another state as a counselor for addicts. But I never stopped thinking about my son. He paused, glancing at the pond where ducks glided serenely. A few years ago, I hired a private investigator, just to check in, make sure he was okay. When the reports showed patterns similar to my old habits secret purchases, hidden accounts, I knew I had to step in. I couldn't let history repeat. I listened, torn between disbelief and a strange empathy. This man had abandoned his child, yet here he was trying to atone. Was it too late? And how would Mark react? The sun was dipping lower, casting long shadows across the grass. I thanked Robert for his honesty, took his contact information, and walked home in a daze, the documents clutched tightly in my hand. That evening, our cozy kitchen felt anything but. Mark was humming as he prepared dinner pasta with his signature sauce, a recipe from his mother. The normalcy of it all made my stomach churn. I waited until we sat down, the steam rising from our plates, before I spoke. Mark, we need to talk. My voice was calmer than I felt. He looked up, concern etching his features. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. In a way, I had. I laid out the documents on the table, watching his face drain of color. A man approached me in the park today. Says you're in debt, hiding it from me, and he claims to be your father. The fork slipped from his hand, clattering against the plate. For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then the floodgates opened. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he confessed. It had started innocently a stress reliever after a promotion that brought more pressure than joy. Buying collectibles online, telling himself he could resell them for profit. But the thrill of the acquisition became addictive, and soon the debts outweighed any gains. I didn't want to worry you, he sobbed. I thought I could fix it myself, like always. We talked for hours, the pasta growing cold. Mark opened up about his childhood in ways he never had before, the confusion of his father's death, the burden on his mother, the vow he'd made to be self-reliant. It explained so much. His meticulous budgeting for show, his aversion to discussing family history. By dawn, exhaustion mingled with a tentative hope. We agreed to seek help a financial planner first, then couples therapy to mend the trust. The next morning, I called Robert. He agreed to meet us at a neutral cafe downtown. The reunion was fraught with tension. Mark's initial anger flared. How dare you show up now? But Robert absorbed it without defense, offering only apologies and explanations. Over coffee that stretched into lunch, walls began to crack. Stories emerged, shared memories of fishing trips, bedtime tales, the dog they'd lost. Mark's resentment softened into curiosity, then cautious acceptance. In the weeks that followed, our lives transformed. The financial advisor helped us consolidate debts, create a repayment plan. Mark sold off his collections, turning hobbies into lessons learned. Robert, with his background in addiction recovery, suggested support groups for compulsive spending. He didn't push for a father-son bond immediately. Instead, he provided practical age-reviewing budgets, recommending apps for tracking expenses. Slowly, Robert integrated into our routine. A dinner here, a walk in the park there. He shared his own recovery journey, inspiring Mark to confront his issues head-on. Our marriage, tested by secrecy, emerged stronger. We instituted honesty nights where no topic was off-limits. Fostering a depth we'd lacked before, months passed and the debts dwindled. We celebrated small victorious, a credit card paid off. A savings goal met with simple pleasures like homemade ice cream or stargazing in the backyard. Robert's presence brought unexpected gifts, family recipes from Mark's grandmother, old photos that filled gaps in Mark's history. One evening, as we pored over an album, Mark turned to his father. "I forgive you," he said quietly. Tears flowed freely that night, healing ones.